They say true warriors don't seek battles. They stay silent until there's no other choice. When the Crimson Riders stormed into Silver Creek Valley, targeting local farmers for their protection racket, they thought Thomas Harrison was just another aging farmer tending his fields. They were about to learn why some men earned their silence through decades of combat, and why disturbing that peace could be the last mistake they'd ever make. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Some say you can measure a person's strength by how they carry their burdens. Others say true power lies in knowing when to reveal it. Today, a gang of arrogant criminals is about to learn both lessons the hard way, discovering that they didn't just threaten a simple farmer, they provoked a decorated Special Forces veteran who spent 20 years perfecting the art of turning enemy advantages into fatal weaknesses. The September morning dawned crisp and clear over Silver Creek Valley, the kind of autumn day that reminded Thomas Harrison why he'd chosen this quiet corner of Montana to build his new life. Golden sunlight painted long shadows across his carefully tended fields, where rows of organic produce stood ready for harvest. At 58, Thomas moved with the fluid efficiency of someone who'd never forgotten his military training, though most locals just saw a successful farmer who'd turned 30 acres into one of the region's most respected organic operations. The weekly farmers' market was already bustling as Thomas arranged his display of heirloom tomatoes and specialty greens. His stand, Harrison Heritage Farms, had become known throughout 3 counties for its quality produce and the quiet dignity of its owner. Few of his regular customers knew about the silver star in his study drawer or the classified operations he'd led across 4 continents. That's exactly how Thomas preferred it. Sarah Chen, who ran the local bakery, stopped by his stand with her usual Saturday morning coffee delivery. "These Roma tomatoes are particularly beautiful this week, Tom," she said, examining the deep red fruits. "Though I heard some troubling news from Carson County. Might want to check your insurance coverage." Her tone carried a weight that made Thomas pause in his arrangement of bell peppers. "The Crimson Riders?" he asked quietly, noting how Sarah's expression tightened at the name. The motorcycle gang had been expanding their territory, moving from town to town, with a sophisticated operation that went far beyond typical criminal intimidation. 3 businesses in neighboring Carson County had mysteriously burned down after refusing their protection services. "They were at the Lebanon market yesterday," Sarah confirmed, her voice low. "Jake Miller tried standing up to them. His produce truck was totaled last night. Brake lines cut." She hesitated, then added, "They're not just thugs, Tom. People say some of them have military training, special ops maybe. They know what they're doing." Thomas absorbed this information with the same careful attention he'd once given pre-mission intelligence briefings. He'd been tracking the Crimson Riders' movements through his own networks, though most locals didn't know about his connections to active duty Special Forces units or the intelligence community. The gang's pattern of expansion showed too much tactical sophistication to be random. Sheriff Kate Martinez's patrol car pulled into the market parking lot, her arrival deliberately casual but her expression alert as she surveyed the morning crowd. She'd been a rookie deputy when Thomas first moved to Silver Creek, and over the years they'd developed a quiet understanding about his background. She knew enough not to ask questions about his past, and he provided occasional insights into security matters that went beyond typical farmer's knowledge. "Quiet morning, Tom," she greeted him, picking up a basket of cherry tomatoes. "Though you might want to review those security measures we discussed last month. Just in case." Her hand rested naturally near her holster, a habit Thomas recognized from his own years of constant vigilance. The morning progressed with its usual rhythm, but Thomas noticed subtle changes in the market's atmosphere. Vendors kept glancing. Toward the highway, parents held their children closer, and conversations carried an undercurrent of tension. Even the usual tourists, drawn by Silver Creek's reputation for artisanal produce and mountain views, seemed to pick up on the unease. Marcus Rodriguez, whose family had farmed the neighboring property for 3 generations, stopped by Thomas's stand. "Got movement on Route 12, he reported quietly. Using the same matter-of-fact tone, they discussed weather and crop rotation. "Multiple bikes, professional formation, not your typical weekend riders." Thomas nodded, already mentally cataloguing his options. The Kharkov family down the road had already paid the Crimson Riders' protection fees, their small dairy operation unable to risk confrontation. But Thomas Harrison had spent 20 years learning that surrender only invited more demands, and some principles were worth fighting for. A distant rumble of motorcycles carried across the valley, growing steadily louder. Thomas continued arranging, his produce with practiced precision, each movement efficient and purposeful. To casual observers, he looked like any other vendor preparing for customers. Only someone with combat experience would recognize how he'd subtly adjusted his position for maximum situational awareness, or notice the way his stance shifted to maintain tactical advantages. The sound of approaching motorcycles grew louder, and Thomas allowed himself a small smile. The Crimson Riders were about to learn a crucial lesson about appearances, and why some quiet farmers were best left in peace. The market's usual Saturday morning bustle carried an undercurrent of tension as vendors watched Sheriff Martinez speak quietly into her radio. Thomas Harrison noted how the crowd's movement patterns had shifted, parents guiding their children toward cars, elderly shoppers finishing their purchases with unusual haste. Years of combat experience had taught him to read a crowd's energy, to sense the subtle shifts that preceded conflict. "Tom?" Marcus Rodriguez approached his stand again, his voice low but urgent. "Just got word from my cousin in security at the county courthouse. The Crimson Riders didn't just torch Jake Miller's truck in Lebanon. They've been buying up properties through shell companies, establishing some kind of distribution network. This isn't just about protection money." Thomas arranged his produce with careful precision, his movements unhurried but purposeful. "Tell me about their patterns," he said quietly, using the same tone he'd once used to debrief intelligence assets in combat zones. Marcus had served 2 tours as a Marine before returning to his family's farm. He knew how to observe and report with military efficiency. "They're targeting specific locations," Marcus continued, pretending to examine a display of bell peppers. "Storage facilities, transport hubs, properties along major routes. Their protection racket is just cover for something bigger. And Tom..." He hesitated, glancing around before continuing. "Some of their new members. They move like professionals. Military training, maybe private contractors." Sarah Chen approached Thomas's stand again, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by careful vigilance. "Just got off the phone with my sister in Carson County," she reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Riders didn't just intimidate businesses there. They've taken over whole supply chains. Anyone who refuses to cooperate finds their deliveries disrupted, their supplies contaminated. They're building some kind of parallel distribution system." Thomas processed this information with the same analytical precision he'd applied to mission intelligence during his Special Forces years. The Crimson Riders weren't just another criminal gang. Their operations showed too much sophistication, too much strategic planning. They were building infrastructure, establishing control points, using tactical procedures that suggested serious military background. Sheriff Martinez made another pass by his stand, her casual demeanor masking clear concern. "Getting reports of movement on all major approaches," she murmured, examining a bunch of carrots. "Multiple groups, coordinated timing. They're not just Sending a few enforcers, this looks like a full territorial expansion operation. The morning sun climbed higher as market vendors exchanged worried glances and hurried conversations. Thomas watched Emily Parker, who ran the flower stand across the aisle, quietly packing her most valuable inventory into her van. The Parkers had lost their previous farm in Carson County after a mysterious series of equipment malfunctions and contaminated soil tests, all after refusing the Crimson Riders' demands. "Should we pack up early?" Sarah asked, noting how the market crowd had thinned considerably. "My brother-in-law said when they hit the Lebanon market, they started by making examples of the most successful vendors. Your stand would be an obvious target." Thomas checked his phone, reviewing a message from an old teammate who now worked in federal law enforcement. The text confirmed his suspicions. The Crimson Riders had connections to private military contractors and international smuggling operations. Their protection racket was just a cover for moving contraband through rural communities, using legitimate businesses as unwitting fronts. "This is my land," Thomas replied quietly, his voice carrying the same calm authority that had once guided special operations teams through hostile territory. "My community. Sometimes you have to draw a line." He remembered similar conversations in remote villages across 4 continents, teaching local communities to stand against forces that seemed overwhelming. The distant rumble of motorcycles grew louder, accompanied now by the deeper sound of larger vehicles, SUVs and trucks, that suggested this was more than a simple gang operation. Through the market's entrance, Thomas could see dust clouds rising. From multiple approach roads, evidence of coordinated movement that spoke of professional tactical training. Sheriff Martinez's deputy, James Cooper, jogged over to report. "Got multiple vehicles incoming, professional spacing, synchronized timing. These aren't just bikers. They're running a military-style operation." His hand rested nervously on his holster, recognizing that his regular law enforcement training might not be sufficient for what was coming. Thomas noted how the remaining market vendors had unconsciously oriented themselves toward his stand, looking to him for guidance, though most didn't know why. He'd spent years building a quiet life here, channeling his combat experience into growing things, into nurturing rather than destroying. But he'd never forgotten the lessons learned through decades of special operations. Sometimes peace could only be maintained through the credible threat of force. The sound of approaching vehicles grew louder as Thomas made his final preparations. His stand's layout, seemingly random, provided optimal coverage and multiple escape routes. The heavy produce crates could serve as improvised cover. And in his truck, carefully hidden but easily accessible, was a reminder of his past life. Equipment he'd hoped never to need again, but maintained with professional diligence. Marcus returned one final time, his expression grave. "They're coming in force, Tom. Whatever they're planning, Silver Creek Valley is clearly important to their operation. You sure you want to make a stand? Nobody would blame you for playing it safe." Thomas adjusted his cap, the gesture masking a quick scan of potential tactical positions around the market square. "Sometimes playing it safe is the most dangerous choice," he replied, remembering similar moments of decision across the world's battlefields. "Some things are worth protecting, no matter the cost." The morning air carried the growing sound of approaching force, but Thomas Harrison stood calmly behind his produce display, decades of combat experience hidden behind the appearance of a simple farmer. The Crimson Riders were about to learn why some quiet men were best left in peace, and why underestimating a veteran could be a fatal mistake. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The first motorcycles appeared at the market entrance in perfect formation, their chrome gleaming under the late morning sun. 20 bikes arranged in a tactical pattern that Thomas Harrison recognized from military convoy operations. This wasn't just a gang arrival. It was a practiced show of force. Behind them, 3 black SUVs with tinted windows pulled up in triangulated positions, their positioning suggesting professional security training. The Crimson Riders' leader, a man known as Commander Stone, dismounted with fluid precision that spoke of extensive military background. Standing at 6'3", his muscled frame carried the kind of hardened confidence that came from years of professional combat experience. His leather vest bore no military insignia, but Thomas noted the subtle ways he scanned the environment, assessed threats, and positioned his men, all hallmarks of special operations training. "Well, well," Stone announced, his voice carrying across the now silent market square. "Silver Creek Valley's famous farmers' market. Heard this was the place to find the finest produce in 3 counties. His casual tone carried an underlying edge of menace, practiced and precise. Behind him, his men spread out in coordinated movements, each taking pre-planned positions with professional efficiency. Thomas continued arranging his tomatoes, each movement deliberate and calm. He recognized Stone's tactical approach, psychological, intimidation through controlled escalation, a technique he'd both used and defended against in operations across the world. The Crimson Riders weren't just trying to intimidate, they were establishing dominance through calculated display of force. "Name's Commander Stone," the leader announced, stopping at Thomas's stand. His eyes showed the calculated assessment of a trained operator. "Though most folks find it healthier to just call me Commander. Impressive operation you've got here." He picked up a tomato, examining it with exaggerated care before letting it drop to the ground. "Be a shame if anything happened to it." Sheriff Martinez appeared nearby, her stance casual but ready. Thomas noticed how Stone's men had already positioned themselves to counter any law enforcement response. These weren't amateurs playing at being tough. They were trained professionals using criminal intimidation as cover for something more sophisticated. "Might want to pay for that," Martinez suggested, her hand resting naturally near her holster. Stone turned slowly, his movement displaying the controlled precision of someone who'd spent years in combat situations. "Or what, Sheriff? You going to enforce produce prices while my men are conducting a legitimate business inspection?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "We're just here to discuss security arrangements. Isn't that right, boys?" The market had fallen completely silent, vendors and customers frozen in place as they watched the confrontation unfold. Thomas noted how Stone's men had systematically covered all major exits and maintained clear fields of fire, standard military crowd control techniques. The black SUVs had repositioned slightly, their drivers maintaining professional security positions. "See, here's the situation," Stone continued, his attention back on Thomas. "Small communities like Silver Creek Valley, they need protection in these uncertain times, professional security services provided by men with specialized experience." He gestured to his team, and Thomas saw how they moved with the coordinated precision of a tactical unit. 20% of gross revenue seems fair for guaranteed safety. "We have law enforcement," Thomas replied evenly, his voice carrying the same quiet authority he'd used when commanding special operations teams. "We don't need additional protection." Stone's laugh carried no humor. "Law enforcement like in Lebanon or Carson County?" He leaned closer, dropping his voice. "Funny thing about small-town sheriffs, they tend to face budget cuts, staff shortages, equipment failures when they don't cooperate with progress. Isn't that right, Sheriff?" Martinez's jaw tightened, but she maintained her professional composure. Thomas recognized the signs of someone who'd been systematically outmaneuvered by superior forces. The Crimson Riders hadn't just brought muscle to Silver Creek Valley, they'd brought a sophisticated operation backed by serious resources. "Some offers only come once," Stone announced, his voice carrying across the market square. "Smart business. Owners understand the value of professional security services. The others—" He gestured, and one of his men casually knocked over a display of fresh herbs. "The others tend to face unfortunate accidents, equipment malfunctions, supply chain issues, health code violations." Thomas watched as Stone's men continued their calculated display of force, noting how their movements revealed extensive tactical training. These weren't ordinary criminals. Their operation showed the hallmarks of private military contractors using organized crime as cover. The question was, cover for what? "You've got until sunset to consider our offer," Stone declared, his casual tone masking practiced menace. "After that, well—" He smiled coldly. Silver Creek Valley might find itself facing some serious agricultural challenges. Soil contamination, water quality issues, the kind of problems that can destroy farming communities. As the Crimson Riders mounted their bikes with military precision, Thomas allowed himself a small smile. Stone had made the same mistake many opponents had made over the years, assuming that quiet patience meant weakness, that a farmer's calm indicated vulnerability. They were about to learn why some men spent decades learning to hide their true capabilities, and why provoking them was a potentially fatal error. The sound of motorcycles filled the market square as the Crimson Riders departed in perfect formation, their black SUVs maintaining professional security positions. But they'd revealed more than they intended. Their tactical precision, their professional coordination, their sophisticated approach to territorial control, all pointed to something far more significant than a simple protection racket. Thomas Harrison watched them leave, his experienced eye noting every detail of their operation. The Crimson Riders thought they were dealing with a simple farmer, but they were about to discover why some quiet fields hid dangerous secrets, and why some veterans never truly left the battlefield. In the wake of the Crimson Riders' departure, Silver Creek Valley's farmers' market slowly came back to life, though the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. Thomas Harrison watched as vendors tried to resume their normal routines, but years of combat experience had taught him to recognize the signs of a community under siege. The subtle glances toward the highway, the hushed conversations, the careful monitoring of exits, civilians adapting to tactical threats without realizing it. Sheriff Martinez approached his stand again, her professional demeanor masking clear concern. "They're not just watching the market, Tom," she reported quietly, pretending to examine a basket of bell peppers. "Got reports of their teams conducting reconnaissance throughout the valley, professional pattern analysis, infrastructure assessment. They've got men photographing water supplies, power stations, communication towers. This isn't random intimidation." Thomas nodded slightly, continuing to rearrange his produce with practiced efficiency. "They're mapping key terrain features," he replied, his voice low but steady. "Analyzing critical infrastructure, identifying tactical advantages, standard special operations procedure for preparing to control territory." He recognized the methodology. He'd conducted similar assessments in dozens of combat zones, from Afghanistan's mountains to South American jungles. Marcus Rodriguez joined them, his marine training evident in how he automatically positioned himself to maintain optimal situational awareness. "Just got word from my contacts at the county courthouse," he reported. "The Crimson Riders have been systematically acquiring properties through front companies, storage facilities, transportation hubs, key intersections. In Carson County, they've already taken control of 3 major distribution centers and 2 trucking companies. They're building something bigger than a protection racket." Sarah Chen arrived with fresh coffee, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by careful vigilance. "They're not just threatening businesses," she added, setting the cups down with precise movements. "They're trying to take control of entire supply chains. In Lebanon, they've established exclusive distribution rights for agricultural products. Anyone who doesn't cooperate finds their supplies mysteriously contaminated. The Miller family lost their entire apple crop last week. Someone introduced a fungal infection that spread through their entire orchard." Thomas processed this intelligence with the same analytical precision he'd once applied to combat operations. The Crimson Riders weren't just criminals using military tactics. They were professional operators implementing a sophisticated strategy. Their protection scheme was merely cover for establishing territorial control and infrastructure development. The pattern matched operations he'd seen in destabilized regions, where criminal enterprises served as fronts for larger strategic objectives. "They'll be back before sunset," Martinez warned, checking her phone. "Got reports they're mobilizing additional forces, multiple vehicles, professional equipment. They've got men setting up observation posts on all major approach routes, establishing communication relays, positioning rapid response teams. They're treating this like a military operation." Her hand unconsciously moved closer to her holster, recognizing that standard law enforcement protocols might be insufficient for what was coming. The market square had become eerily quiet as vendors and customers sensed the approaching confrontation. Thomas noted how people unconsciously oriented themselves toward his stand, seeking guidance from his calm authority without understanding why. He'd seen similar behavior in combat zones, civilians instinctively recognizing leadership even when it wasn't openly displayed. The community was preparing for conflict without realizing it, falling into patterns he'd observed in threatened villages across 4 continents. "You don't have to face them alone," Marcus offered, his military training evident in how he assessed defensive positions around the market. "Got some friends from my Marine days nearby. Could have them here in a few hours. Good men, combat experienced, still maintain their skills." Thomas shook his head slightly, continuing his methodical preparation of the produce display. "Sometimes the best defense is letting your opponent underestimate you," he replied, remembering similar situations across multiple combat theaters. "They're expecting resistance from law enforcement, local tough guys. They're not looking for someone with advanced tactical training. That gives us an advantage they don't know exists." Through the market's security cameras, they watched the Crimson Riders establishing observation posts around Silver Creek Valley. Their positioning showed professional military precision, overlapping fields of view, tactical communication patterns, synchronized movement protocols. These weren't ordinary criminals. They were trained operators implementing a strategic plan. Thomas recognized elements of special operations doctrine in their methods, suggesting their leadership had serious military background. "They've got us outgunned," Martinez admitted, frustration evident in her voice. "County resources are stretched thin, state police are mysteriously unavailable, and these guys have military-grade equipment and training. Their vehicles carry professional communications gear, thermal imaging equipment, tactical weaponry. We're looking at a force that's better equipped than most SWAT teams." Thomas allowed himself a small smile, one that would have been familiar to his former special operations teammates. "They have equipment and numbers," he agreed quietly. "But they've made a critical tactical error. They think they're dealing with simple farmers, people who can be controlled through intimidation and force. They haven't considered that some of us spent decades learning how to turn superior force into a disadvantage. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the most equipment. It's the one who knows exactly how to neutralize that advantage." As afternoon shadows lengthened across the market square, Thomas continued his preparations with deliberate precision. Each adjustment to his display created optimal firing lanes and defensive positions. Every shifted crate provided potential, cover or concealment. To casual observers, he looked like a meticulous farmer arranging his produce. To experienced operators, he was preparing a battlefield with the same careful attention he'd once given to special operations planning. "Last chance to pack up and avoid confrontation," Martinez offered, though she already knew his answer. "Nobody would blame you for playing it safe. These guys have already shown what they're capable of in other towns." Thomas thought about all the communities he'd helped defend across 4 continents, all the times he'd watched people stand up to forces that seemed overwhelming. "Sometimes avoiding confrontation just invites more aggression," he replied, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had once guided special operations teams through impossible situations. "Some things are worth defending no matter the cost. Silver Creek Valley is our home. We don't abandon it just because someone brings superior firepower." The sun began its descent toward the western mountains as Silver Creek Valley prepared for what was coming. The Crimson Riders thought they were dealing with a simple farmer, but they were about to learn why some veterans never truly retired. They just found different fields to defend, different ways to protect what mattered. And Thomas Harrison had spent 20 years perfecting the art of appearing less dangerous than he truly was. The Crimson Riders returned at precisely 4 o'clock, their arrival demonstrating the kind of tactical precision that Thomas Harrison recognized from his years in special operations. This time, their force had doubled, 40 motorcycles in perfect formation, accompanied by 5 black SUVs and 2 unmarked cargo trucks. Their deployment pattern spoke of professional military training, each vehicle positioned to maintain optimal control of the market square. Commander Stone dismounted with practiced efficiency, his movements carrying the deliberate control of someone accustomed to combat situations. His leather vest had been replaced by tactical gear that wouldn't have looked out of place in a private military contractor's arsenal. Behind him, his men spread out in coordinated patterns, their positions creating interlocking fields of control across the market space. "Time's up," Stone announced, his voice carrying the kind of authority that came from years of commanding military operations. "Let's see who here understands the value of professional security services." He gestured, and his men began moving through the market with methodical precision, approaching each vendor with practiced intimidation. Thomas watched as the Crimson Riders demonstrated their true capabilities. These weren't ordinary criminals throwing their weight around. They were trained operators implementing a sophisticated territorial control strategy. Their movements showed the hallmarks of extensive military experience, each action calculated for maximum psychological impact. "Mr. Harrison," Stone approached Thomas's stand, flanked by 2 operators whose bearing suggested Special Forces background. "I hope you've had time to consider our generous offer. 20% seems quite reasonable for ensuring the safety of your impressive operation." His smile carried cold professionalism rather than mere thuggish menace. "My answer hasn't changed," Thomas replied evenly, continuing to arrange his produce with careful precision. His movements, to trained observers, maintained optimal positioning for tactical response. "Silver Creek Valley doesn't need your kind of protection." Stone's expression hardened, showing the calculated control of someone used to handling resistance. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order. Show Mr. Harrison why our services are essential in these uncertain times." His command carried the quiet authority of someone accustomed to ordering military operations. The Crimson Riders' response was immediate and coordinated. Teams of 2 moved through the market with professional efficiency, systematically destroying displays and inventory. But their actions weren't random vandalism. They targeted key supplies, contaminated specific products, and damaged crucial equipment. This was calculated destruction meant to demonstrate control over the community's economic lifelines. "Stop this!" Sheriff Martinez moved to intervene, but found herself facing operators with obvious tactical training. Their positioning and readiness stance suggested they were prepared for law enforcement response. Stone's men had already established control points around all major approaches, effectively isolating the market square. "Careful, Sheriff," Stone advised, his tone carrying professional menace. Accidents can happen when law enforcement interferes with legitimate business operations. Equipment malfunctions, evidence disappears, witnesses become unreliable. His words carried the weight of someone who had handled similar situations before. Thomas observed the systematic destruction with the calculated patience of a veteran operator. The Crimson Riders weren't just damaging property, they were demonstrating their ability to control every aspect of the community's life. Their tactical precision showed years of professional training, their coordinated actions suggesting experience in psychological warfare operations. The situation escalated when Marcus Rodriguez attempted to protect elderly Mrs. Chen's bakery stand. Two of Stone's operators moved with military precision, their response showing years of close-quarters combat training. The sound of Marcus's arm breaking cut through the chaos like a gunshot, the precision of the strike demonstrating professional expertise rather than mere brutality. "That's enough." Thomas's voice carried the quiet authority that had once commanded special operations teams in combat zones. The market fell silent, even Stone's men pausing at the unexpected tone of command in what they'd dismissed as a simple farmer's voice. Stone studied Thomas with new interest, his trained eye catching subtle details he'd previously missed. The way Harrison maintained tactical positioning while appearing relaxed, how he'd systematically positioned market items for optimal cover, his precise control of movement and sight lines, all indicators of serious combat experience. "You've got combat experience," Stone observed, his assessment showing professional recognition. "Special operations, maybe? Interesting background for a farmer." He gestured, and his men adjusted their positions, unconsciously responding to the presence of a potential tactical threat. "Last warning," Thomas replied calmly, his stance shifting almost imperceptibly into a ready position that any trained operator would recognize. "Take your men and leave Silver Creek Valley. This isn't a community you want to target." Stone's laugh carried cold professionalism. "Or what? You'll fight 40 trained operators with farming tools? This isn't a third-world village where one trained soldier can make a difference. We've got superior numbers, professional equipment, tactical advantages." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "We've handled resistance from special forces, veterans before. They all learn that retirement means staying retired." Thomas allowed himself a small smile, one that would have been familiar to his former teammates in the world's most dangerous combat zones. "You're making assumptions about what retirement means," he replied quietly. "Some of us just found different battlefields to defend." The tension in the market square reached critical levels as both sides assessed tactical options. Stone's men had maintained professional discipline, their positioning showing years of combat experience, but something in Thomas's calm response had triggered their tactical awareness, trained operators recognizing a potentially serious threat. "Clear the market," Stone ordered his men, his voice carrying command authority. "Full response protocol. Mr. Harrison needs a more comprehensive demonstration of why resistance isn't tactically viable." His words carried the weight of someone accustomed to ordering military operations against hostile forces. As the Crimson Riders began implementing their commander's orders with professional precision, Thomas Harrison maintained his position with the same calm patience that had made him legendary in special operations circles. The real battle was about to begin, and Stone was about to learn why some veterans were more dangerous after retirement. They had nothing left to lose except the things worth dying for. In his study, Thomas activated a secure satellite communication system concealed behind a vintage farming photograph. The equipment, maintained with military precision, represented technology that shouldn't have been available to civilians. Within moments, he was connected to a secure network that linked him to former teammates now scattered across various military and intelligence organizations. Sierra Actual, authentication code, Whiskey Echo 793. Thomas spoke into the encrypted channel, using a call sign that hadn't been officially active for a decade, requesting situation assessment and resource validation. His voice carried the same quiet authority that had once guided special operations teams through the world's most dangerous environments. Colonel James Iron Jack Morrison, now serving in military intelligence, responded immediately. "Thomas, haven't heard that code since Kandahar. What's the situation?" The professional concern in his voice suggested he understood that Thomas wouldn't activate these protocols without serious cause. "Got a private military operation attempting territorial acquisition in Silver Creek Valley," Thomas reported, falling naturally into the precise language of military intelligence. Professional operators, tactical-grade equipment, sophisticated infrastructure development, using criminal organization as cover for something bigger. As Thomas detailed the Crimson Riders' operations, patterns began emerging on his secured monitors. Similar activities had been reported across multiple states. Professional military contractors establishing control over rural communities, systematically developing infrastructure for unknown purposes. The operation in Silver Creek Valley wasn't isolated. It was part of a coordinated campaign. "Getting interesting data points," Morrison responded, after running Thomas's information through military databases. "Your Commander Stone? Former Delta Force, discharged under classified circumstances. His organization has connections to private military contractors working unauthorized operations on domestic soil. This goes deeper than local criminality." Thomas processed this intelligence with the analytical precision that had made him legendary in special operations circles. "They're establishing control points along major transportation corridors," he observed, studying tactical maps on his secure system, "using rural communities as cover for some kind of distribution network, professional military precision, but operating outside official channels." "Got more?" came a new voice on the secure channel, Captain Sarah Mitchell, now working in federal law enforcement intelligence. "Cross-referencing your data with ongoing investigations, the Crimson Riders have been systematically acquiring properties through shell companies, storage facilities, transportation hubs, communication centers. They're building infrastructure for something big." Thomas moved to a hidden room behind his study's oak panels, accessing equipment he'd maintained but hoped never to need again. The cache contained tactical gear that matched current special operations standards, communication systems, surveillance equipment, and other tools that demonstrated his connections to military networks hadn't fully retired with him. "What kind of support can you provide?" he asked, checking equipment with practiced efficiency. "They've got at least 40 operators with professional training, tactical-grade weapons and military equipment, plus unknown additional resources they haven't revealed yet. Official channels are compromised," Morrison replied, his tone carrying professional concern. "Someone with serious influence is blocking normal response protocols, but unofficial assets, that's another matter. Got 3 former team members within 4 hours of your position, plus satellite coverage and signals intelligence support." But Captain Mitchell added her assessment. "FBI has been tracking similar operations in other regions. Private military contractors using criminal organizations as cover, establishing control over rural infrastructure. But every time we get close to exposure, the investigations get shut down from above. Thomas activated additional secure systems, bringing online surveillance capabilities that no civilian farmer should have possessed. The equipment had been carefully maintained, updated through unofficial channels that connected him to the world's most advanced military technology. Thermal imaging shows they're establishing observation posts around the valley, he reported, studying professional-grade tactical displays. Communication relay stations, rapid response teams, supply caches. They're preparing for serious resistance. His assessment carried the precision of someone who had both implemented and countered such tactical deployments. "Got something else?" Morrison interjected. "Cross-referencing with classified databases, the equipment they're using. Some of it matches signatures from restricted military development programs. These aren't just well-equipped criminals. They've got access to prototype systems that shouldn't exist outside official channels." Thomas processed this information while continuing his equipment check. The Crimson Riders weren't just criminals using military tactics. They were part of something that reached into the highest levels of military and government operations. Their presence in Silver Creek Valley served a larger strategic purpose. "Sending you updated tactical data," Captain Mitchell added. Satellite imagery shows similar infrastructure development patterns in other targeted communities. They're building something bigger than local criminal operations. The question is, what requires this level of professional military expertise and unauthorized prototype equipment? As Thomas completed his preparations, he allowed himself a grim smile. Commander Stone had made a critical error in assuming that retirement meant surrendering capabilities. Some veterans maintained more than memories of their service. They preserved connections, resources, and skills that could be reactivated when circumstances required. "I'm going to need everything you can provide through unofficial channels," Thomas informed his former teammates. "Technical support, tactical intelligence, communication assistance. Stone needs to learn why threatening some quiet farmers can trigger responses he never anticipated." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Silver Creek Valley as Thomas Harrison prepared for what was coming. The Crimson Riders thought they were dealing with a simple farmer who happened to have military experience. They were about to discover that some veterans maintained sophisticated networks of capabilities, waiting quietly until the moment they were needed most. In his hidden command center, Thomas studied tactical displays showing the Crimson Riders' deployment patterns. They had the training, equipment, and numbers to control most rural communities. But they had never encountered a veteran who had spent decades preparing for the possibility that his hard-earned peace might need to be defended with more than farming tools. The secure communications network in Thomas Harrison's command center hummed with activity as intelligence reports flowed in from his former military contacts. Satellite imagery displayed on high-resolution screens revealed the full scope of the Crimson Riders' operation across Silver Creek Valley. Their deployment wasn't just tactical. It demonstrated strategic sophistication that suggested a much larger objective. "Getting confirmation on their equipment signatures," Colonel Morrison reported through the encrypted channel. "They're running prototype communication systems that were developed for classified special operations programs. The encryption protocols match experimental military designs. Someone's providing them with technology that shouldn't exist outside secure government facilities." Thomas studied the tactical displays with the methodical precision that had characterized his special operations career. The Crimson Riders had established a sophisticated network of observation posts, communication relays, and rapid response teams around Silver Creek Valley. Their positioning showed professional military expertise in controlling rural territory. Thermal imaging is picking up interesting patterns, Captain Mitchell added, her voice carrying the focused analysis of an intelligence professional. They're not just setting up security positions. These signatures match specialized storage facilities, temperature-controlled, electromagnetic shielding, advanced security systems. Whatever they're planning to move through Silver Creek Valley requires serious infrastructure. Through his surveillance systems, Thomas watched Commander Stone directing his men with practiced military efficiency. The Crimson Riders were systematically mapping key infrastructure points throughout the valley: water supplies, power distribution, communication nodes. Their assessment patterns matched protocols Thomas recognized from his own special operations. Background: cross-referencing with other targeted communities, Morrison continued. They've established similar operations in strategic locations across 3 states. Each site shows the same pattern: professional military contractors using criminal organizations as cover, systematically developing infrastructure for specialized transportation and storage capabilities. Sarah Chen arrived at Thomas's farmhouse through a carefully concealed back entrance, carrying documents retrieved from her contacts in the county administration. "They're not just buying properties," she reported, spreading maps across his tactical display. "They're establishing legal control over specific transportation routes, storage facilities, and distribution networks. The paperwork shows connections to international shipping companies and private security firms." Thomas analyzed the documents with the same attention to detail that had once helped him uncover hostile operations in combat zones. The Crimson Riders' legal framework revealed sophisticated planning, shell companies within shell companies, corporate structures designed to obscure true ownership and purposes. Getting more data on Commander Stone, Captain Mitchell reported. His military record shows specialized training in unconventional warfare and infrastructure development. Before his classified discharge, he led operations establishing covert transportation networks in hostile territories. The pattern he's implementing here matches protocols developed for moving sensitive materials through contested regions. Marcus Rodriguez arrived next, his broken arm in a professional cast, but his marine training evident in how he moved. "My contacts at the VA picked up something interesting," he added to the growing intelligence picture. "Several of Stone's key operators were part of a classified program developing methods for using civilian infrastructure to move military hardware without detection. The program was officially disbanded, but the expertise remained. Through his surveillance network, Thomas observed the Crimson Riders conducting systematic equipment deployments around Silver Creek Valley. Their vehicles carried sophisticated electronic warfare systems, counter-surveillance gear, and tactical communication arrays that demonstrated access to restricted military technology. "They're not just preparing to control the valley," Thomas concluded, recognizing patterns he'd seen in special operations theaters worldwide. "They're establishing a sophisticated distribution hub, using rural infrastructure as cover for moving something that requires military-grade security and specialized handling." Sheriff Martinez joined the briefing through a secure video link, her law enforcement experience adding crucial local context. "County records show similar patterns in other communities where they've established control," she reported. "Once they secure a location, we see unusual shipping patterns, heavy vehicles moving at night, sophisticated security escorts, specialized handling equipment. Whatever they're transporting requires serious operational security." "Getting more correlations," Morrison added. "Their infrastructure development matches parameters for moving classified military hardware. The security protocols, handling requirements, and storage specifications align with transporting sensitive prototype systems. Someone's using their operation to establish a shadow transportation network for materials that can't move through official channels. Thomas's secure systems continued processing data from multiple sources, building a comprehensive picture of the Crimson Riders' true nature. They weren't just another criminal organization using military tactics. They represented something far more sophisticated. Their presence in Silver Creek Valley was part of a larger strategic operation, using rural communities as cover for moving classified materials outside official oversight. "They've made one critical miscalculation," Thomas observed, studying tactical displays showing the Crimson Riders' deployment patterns. They assumed that targeting rural communities meant facing simple civilian resistance. They never considered that some quiet farmers maintained sophisticated capabilities and connections to military networks. As evening approached, Thomas Harrison completed his analysis of the emerging intelligence picture. The Crimson Riders had built an impressive operation, combining professional military expertise with criminal intimidation to establish control over rural infrastructure. But they were about to learn why some veterans maintained more than memories of their service. They preserved capabilities specifically for moments when serious threats emerged in unexpected places. As darkness approached Silver Creek Valley, Thomas Harrison transformed his farmhouse into an impromptu command center for coordinating community defense. Local residents arrived through carefully planned routes, demonstrating that the quiet, farming community harbored more tactical awareness than the Crimson Riders had anticipated. Each arrival brought new intelligence about the opposition's movements and capabilities. Sheriff Martinez coordinated with her most trusted deputies through secure channels that Thomas had established. "They've got observation posts here, and here," she indicated on the tactical display, marking positions that showed professional military precision. Their coverage pattern suggests they're preparing for a sustained operation, not just intimidation. They're establishing hardened positions with overlapping fields of fire and sophisticated surveillance equipment. Marcus Rodriguez, despite his injured arm, provided crucial insights from his Marine Corps experience. Their deployment pattern matches advanced territorial control doctrine, he analyzed, studying the Crimson Riders' positions. They're not just securing the valley, they're preparing it for major logistical operations. The infrastructure they're developing could support significant material movement without attracting attention. Through Thomas's surveillance network, they observed the Crimson Riders implementing professional security protocols around key locations. Their operations showed the hallmarks of Special Forces training: systematic coverage, counter-surveillance measures, and tactical communication systems that suggested access to restricted military technology. "We've identified 3 primary vulnerabilities in their security network," Thomas briefed the assembled group, highlighting tactical opportunities on his digital displays. "They're maintaining professional discipline, but they're operating under several false assumptions about local capabilities and terrain features. Their tactical doctrine assumes they're dealing with standard civilian resistance." Sarah Chen, whose family had operated businesses in Silver Creek Valley for 3 generations, provided crucial local intelligence. "The old mining tunnels under the Eastern Ridge aren't on any official maps," she reported, spreading detailed surveys across Thomas's tactical table. "My grandfather mapped them during the copper boom. They connect to several key infrastructure points the Riders are trying to control." The community's preparation demonstrated a level of sophistication that would have surprised outside observers. Farmers discussed tactical positions using terminology learned during military service. Local technicians analyzed vulnerabilities in the Crimson Riders' communication systems. Even the high school's computer club contributed, using their gaming expertise to map potential conflict zones in 3-dimensional detail. "Their command and control structure shows typical special operations architecture," Thomas explained. highlighting key tactical elements. But they're adapted for civilian intimidation, not confronting organized resistance with professional military experience. Their psychological operations assume they're dealing with untrained civilians who can be controlled through force demonstration. Through secure channels, Thomas's former military contacts provided ongoing intelligence support. Satellite imagery revealed the full scope of the Crimson Riders' deployment, while signals intelligence tracked their communication patterns. The evidence confirmed that Silver Creek Valley was becoming a crucial node in their shadow infrastructure network. "We've identified their primary command post," Captain Mitchell reported through encrypted channels. "They're running sophisticated electronic warfare systems, but their energy signatures match known military protocols. Whatever they're planning to move through the valley requires significant operational security and specialized handling capabilities." Local business owners contributed crucial resources to the community's preparation. The lumber yard provided materials for defensive positions, disguised as routine construction projects. The auto repair shop modified vehicles for tactical purposes, while the farm supply store distributed communication equipment through established delivery routes. "Their operational tempo suggests they're accelerating their timeline," Colonel Morrison added, analyzing tactical data. "Similar patterns have emerged in other targeted communities just before major infrastructure activation. They're preparing for significant material movement through established transportation corridors." Thomas coordinated each element of the community's response with professional precision, drawing on decades of special operations experience. Every farmer, business owner, and resident understood their role in the developing strategic situation. The Crimson Riders had expected to find a vulnerable rural community. Instead, they faced a sophisticated defensive network led by a veteran who had spent years preparing for such contingencies. "They'll likely initiate their next phase at dawn," Thomas assessed, studying tactical projections, standard military doctrine for territorial control operations. "They'll want optimal visibility and maximum psychological impact." His analysis drew on years of both implementing and countering similar operations across multiple combat theaters. The community's preparation demonstrated why underestimating rural populations could be a serious tactical error. Behind the peaceful facade of farming life, Silver Creek Valley harbored unexpected capabilities. Local hunters understood terrain features and firing positions. Former military personnel maintained tactical skills. Even teenagers contributed technological expertise that added crucial capabilities to the defensive network. "Remember," Thomas addressed the assembled group, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had once guided special operations teams through complex missions. "They're expecting disorganized civilian resistance. Their tactical doctrine is designed for intimidating untrained populations. They're not prepared for coordinated opposition from a community that understands professional military operations." As night fell over Silver Creek Valley, the community completed its preparation with methodical precision. The Crimson Riders had built an impressive operation, combining military expertise with criminal intimidation to control rural infrastructure. But they were about to learn that some quiet farming communities contained more tactical capabilities than their intelligence had indicated. And some retired veterans maintained sophisticated resources specifically for defending their chosen communities from unexpected threats. The first engagement began at precisely 2300 hours when the Crimson Riders initiated their nighttime operation to secure key positions throughout Silver Creek Valley. Their approach demonstrated professional military precision, with teams moving in coordinated patterns that reflected extensive tactical training. Through his surveillance network, Thomas Harrison watched their deployment with the calculated patience of a veteran special operations commander. Multiple teams moving on predetermined vectors, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. Thermal signatures indicate advanced tactical equipment. They're running professional night operations protocols. The satellite feed showed the Crimson Riders' forces spreading through the valley with methodical efficiency, their movements suggesting years of military experience. Commander Stone directed his operation from a mobile command post, coordinating his teams with the expertise of someone accustomed to managing complex tactical situations. Alpha Team, secure the Northern Water Treatment Facility. Bravo! Establish control of the main power distribution hub. Charlie, neutralize any surveillance around the primary transportation corridor. His orders carried the precise language of professional military operations. What the Crimson Riders didn't realize was that Silver Creek Valley had prepared sophisticated countermeasures under Thomas's guidance. As their teams approached key infrastructure points, they encountered unexpected resistance that demonstrated tactical expertise matching their own professional standards. The first indication that this wouldn't be a standard intimidation operation came when Alpha Team attempted to secure the water treatment facility. Their approach was textbook special operations, but they found their night vision equipment experiencing unexpected interference. The tactical advantage they expected from superior technology suddenly vanished. Multiple targets, professional, equipment malfunction, Alpha Team's leader reported, his voice carrying the controlled tension of an experienced operator facing unexpected complications. Someone's running advanced counter-surveillance measures. These aren't standard civilian security systems. Thomas coordinated the community's response from his command center, utilizing capabilities that no ordinary farming community should have possessed. Local hunters, many with military backgrounds, maintained covered positions with practiced discipline. Former service members implemented tactical protocols that matched the Crimson Riders' professional standards. Bravo Team, encountering significant resistance at the power distribution hub, came another report through the intercepted channels. Opposition showing tactical coordination. They've prepared defensive positions with professional-grade planning. The frustration in the operator's voice revealed their growing realization that this wasn't a typical rural community. Sheriff Martinez's deputies, supplemented by local veterans, implemented containment protocols that Thomas had developed based on years of special operations experience. Each time the Crimson Riders attempted to establish tactical advantage, they found their movements anticipated and countered by sophisticated defensive measures. "They're using the terrain against us," Charlie Team reported, encountering unexpected difficulties along the transportation corridor. Local knowledge combined with professional tactical implementation. These aren't ordinary civilians. The professional assessment in the operator's voice carried growing concern about the situation's complexity. Through secure communications, Thomas coordinated with his military contacts while directing the community's defense. "Target their command and control capabilities," he instructed. "Their operational doctrine relies on centralized coordination. Disrupt their tactical communications, force them to operate without synchronized support." The Crimson Riders soon discovered that their sophisticated equipment provided less advantage than expected. Local technicians, guided by Thomas's expertise, implemented electronic countermeasures that compromised their tactical communications. The professional operators found themselves facing resistance that matched their own capabilities. Multiple teams reporting equipment failures. Commander Stone's voice carried controlled frustration. "Someone's running military-grade countermeasures. What exactly are we dealing with here?" The professional operator's assessment revealed growing recognition that they'd severely underestimated their opposition. Thomas watched through his tactical displays as the Crimson Riders attempted to adapt their operation. Their movements showed professional expertise, but they struggled against defenders who combined local knowledge with unexpected tactical capabilities. Each attempt to establish control encountered sophisticated resistance that demonstrated military-grade preparation. "They're falling back to secondary positions," Colonel Morrison observed, through secure channels. "Their tactical doctrine isn't prepared for this level of organized opposition. They're used to intimidating civilians, not engaging professional military resistance." The night operations continued with methodical precision on both sides. The Crimson Riders maintained professional discipline, but their advantages in equipment and training provided less tactical superiority than they'd expected. Silver Creek Valley's defenders demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't have existed. In a rural farming community, "All teams, implement contingency protocol Sierra," Commander Stone ordered, his voice showing the controlled adaptation of an experienced tactical commander. "We're dealing with organized opposition with military capabilities. Adjust operational parameters accordingly." The professional assessment in his commands revealed growing respect for the unexpected resistance. Thomas coordinated the community's defensive operations with the same quiet efficiency that had once guided special operations teams through complex missions. Local residents demonstrated unexpected tactical capabilities, combining their knowledge of the terrain with professional military expertise that matched the Crimson Riders' own standards. As the night's engagement continued, both sides demonstrated sophisticated tactical implementations. The Crimson Riders maintained professional discipline, but they found themselves facing opposition that understood their operational doctrine and had prepared specific countermeasures. Thomas Harrison's years of special operations experience had transformed a quiet farming community into a coordinated defensive force that matched professional military standards. The tactical situation in Silver Creek Valley had reached a critical phase as Thomas Harrison's command center received increasingly significant intelligence from his military contacts. The secure communications network hummed with activity as new information revealed the true scope of the Crimson Riders' operation, extending far beyond simple territorial control or criminal enterprise. "We've identified their corporate connections," Captain Mitchell reported through encrypted channels, her voice carrying the measured precision of a professional intelligence analyst. "The shell companies controlling their operations trace back to private military contractors with classified government contracts. These aren't just professional operators gone rogue. They're part of something much larger." Thomas studied the incoming data on his tactical displays, applying the analytical expertise developed through decades of special operations experience. The pattern emerging from various intelligence sources painted a disturbing picture of sophisticated infrastructure development operating outside official oversight. Colonel Morrison's voice added crucial context through secure communications. Cross-referencing with classified databases shows their equipment signatures matching experimental military programs. The technology they're deploying in Silver Creek Valley corresponds to prototype systems that shouldn't exist outside secure government facilities. Someone's providing them with capabilities that bypass normal authorization channels. Through his surveillance network, Thomas observed the Crimson Riders regrouping after their initial tactical setback. Commander Stone's reorganization demonstrated professional adaptation, but also revealed concerning elements about their true mission. The precision of their revised deployment suggested preparation for handling specialized materials requiring significant operational security. Their infrastructure development follows patterns we've seen in classified transportation networks, Morrison continued, sharing tactical analysis through secure channels. The facilities they're establishing match specifications for moving sensitive military hardware without detection. They're building a shadow logistics system using rural communities as cover. Sarah Chen arrived with new intelligence gathered. through her family's business connections. The property acquisitions extend beyond Silver Creek Valley, she reported, spreading detailed documents across Thomas's tactical display. They're establishing control points along specific transportation corridors, creating a network that connects to private ports and secure airfields. The pattern suggests preparation for moving significant cargo without official oversight. Thomas analyzed the emerging picture with the methodical precision that had characterized his military career. The Crimson Riders operation represented more than territorial expansion. It demonstrated sophisticated planning for handling classified materials through civilian infrastructure. Their presence in Silver Creek Valley served a larger strategic purpose, getting confirmation on their command structure, Captain Mitchell added. Commander Stone reports through multiple layers of private military contractors, ultimately connecting to organizations with high-level government access. Their operation has protection from serious political figures who prefer to remain unidentified. Marcus Rodriguez, monitoring local communications, detected new patterns in the Crimson Riders' tactical network. They're coordinating with similar operations in other regions, he reported, his Marine Corps training evident in his professional assessment. The communications suggest preparation for major material movement. Whatever they're planning to transport requires significant security. Protocols! Sheriff Martinez joined the briefing through secure video link, adding crucial local context to the emerging intelligence picture. County records show unusual permit applications filed through their shell companies, she reported. They're seeking authorization for specialized storage facilities with environmental controls and radiation shielding. These aren't standard commercial warehouses. Thomas's tactical displays showed the Crimson Riders implementing revised security protocols around key infrastructure points. Their positioning revealed preparation for handling materials that required sophisticated containment and monitoring. The operation demonstrated capabilities that exceeded normal private military contractor standards. Their security measures match protocols for handling classified prototype systems, Colonel Morrison observed. The containment specifications, monitoring requirements and operational security standards align with moving experimental military hardware. They're establishing infrastructure for transporting something that can't move through official channels. The intelligence continued building a comprehensive picture of an operation with disturbing implications. The Crimson Riders represented the visible element of a sophisticated network connecting private military contractors, corporate interests, and government entities operating outside normal oversight. Found something else in their communication patterns, Captain Mitchell reported. They're using encryption protocols that suggest connection to classified military development programs. The security standards exceed normal contractor specifications. Whatever they're preparing to move through these rural networks requires extraordinary operational security. Thomas processed this intelligence with the careful analysis that had made him effective in special operations. The Crimson Riders' presence in Silver Creek Valley served a strategic purpose in a larger operation, establishing infrastructure for moving sensitive materials through civilian areas without attracting official attention. Their tactical adaptation shows professional expertise, he observed, studying their revised deployment patterns, but they're still operating under false assumptions about local capabilities. They haven't realized they're facing opposition with detailed understanding of special operations protocols and access to sophisticated military resources. As night operations continued across Silver Creek Valley, the true nature of the conflict became increasingly clear. This wasn't merely a confrontation between criminal forces and local resistance. It represented a crucial junction in a larger strategic operation involving classified military capabilities and unauthorized domestic Operations. The Crimson Riders had established an impressive operation combining professional military expertise with criminal intimidation. But they had severely underestimated the capabilities of a quiet farming community led by a veteran who maintained sophisticated connections to military and intelligence networks. The emerging conflict would determine more than local control. It had the potential to expose unauthorized operations that powerful figures wanted to keep hidden. The tactical situation in Silver Creek Valley shifted dramatically at 0300 hours with the arrival of additional Crimson Rider forces. Through his surveillance network, Thomas Harrison observed a convoy of unmarked military-grade vehicles entering the operational area. These weren't the standard black SUVs used in their initial deployment. These vehicles carried sophisticated electronic warfare systems and tactical equipment that matched current special operations standards. Multiple teams deploying with advanced tactical gear, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. Thermal signatures indicate prototype combat systems. These operators are running military-grade equipment that exceeds normal contractor specifications. The satellite feed showed professional operators moving with the precision that came from extensive special operations experience. Commander Stone coordinated the new deployment from his mobile command post, his orders demonstrating increased tactical sophistication. Echo Team, establish electronic warfare coverage across all designated sectors. Foxtrot, implement full-spectrum counter-surveillance protocols. We're dealing with unexpected military capabilities. Respond accordingly. The new operators demonstrated capabilities that confirmed Thomas's concerns about the operation's true nature. Their movement patterns showed extensive special operations training, while their equipment included prototype systems that shouldn't have been available outside classified military programs. These aren't standard private military contractors. Colonel Morrison observed through encrypted communications. Their tactical protocols match specialized units trained for handling sensitive military assets. The equipment signatures suggest access to restricted development programs. Someone's providing them with capabilities that exceed official authorization. Through his command center's displays, Thomas watched the new teams establishing sophisticated defensive positions throughout Silver Creek Valley. Their deployment pattern revealed preparation for securing routes and facilities suitable for moving classified materials. Each position was chosen with professional precision, creating overlapping fields of control that demonstrated advanced military planning. Getting interesting data from their communication networks, Marcus Rodriguez reported, his Marine Corps experience evident in his tactical assessment. They're running encryption protocols that match experimental military systems. The security standards suggest preparation for moving something that requires extraordinary operational security. Sheriff Martinez's deputies monitored the new deployment from concealed positions, reporting through secure channels. These operators move differently, she observed. Professional military precision, advanced tactical coordination. They're implementing security protocols that exceed anything we've seen in law enforcement operations. Thomas analyzed the emerging tactical situation with the methodical precision that had characterized his special operations career. The new forces represented a significant escalation, demonstrating capabilities that confirmed the operation's connection to classified military programs. Their presence revealed the true stakes involved in controlling Silver Creek Valley's infrastructure. Their equipment includes prototype electronic warfare systems, Captain Mitchell added. The technology matches classified development programs we've been tracking. These aren't just well-equipped contractors, they're operating with military capabilities that haven't been officially deployed. The Crimson Riders' new operators established control points with professional efficiency. their movements showing the kind of tactical precision that came from extensive special operations experience. Each team demonstrated advanced capabilities in counter-surveillance and electronic warfare, implementing security protocols that exceeded normal military contractor standards. Echo team reporting full-spectrum coverage established, came the update through intercepted channels. Electronic warfare systems online, counter-surveillance measures active, implementing security protocols for handling sensitive materials. The professional precision in their communications revealed operators accustomed to managing classified operations. Thomas coordinated the community's response through his secure network, utilizing capabilities that matched the opposition's sophisticated deployment. Local defenders maintained tactical positions with professional discipline, while technical teams implemented countermeasures against the advanced electronic warfare systems. They're establishing a security framework for moving classified materials, Colonel Morrison observed. The containment protocols and monitoring systems match specifications for handling experimental military hardware. This goes beyond normal private military operations. They're building infrastructure for something that requires extraordinary security measures. The night operations continued with increasing tactical sophistication as both sides demonstrated advanced military capabilities. The Crimson Riders' new operators maintained professional discipline, implementing security protocols that revealed the operation's connection to classified military programs. Silver Creek Valley's defenders responded with coordinated resistance that matched their tactical expertise. All teams, implement full security protocols, Commander Stone ordered through encrypted channels. We're facing opposition with unexpected military capabilities. Adjust operational parameters for handling high-value assets under contested conditions. The professional assessment in his commands revealed growing recognition of the situation's complexity. Thomas directed the community's defensive operations with the same quiet efficiency that had once guided special operations teams through complex missions. Local defenders demonstrated sophisticated tactical capabilities, combining their knowledge of the terrain with professional military expertise that countered the opposition's advanced technology. As dawn approached, the tactical situation in Silver Creek Valley had evolved into something far more significant than a simple confrontation between private military contractors and local resistance. The Crimson Riders' deployment of advanced military capabilities confirmed their connection to classified operations, while the community's sophisticated response demonstrated unexpected expertise in countering professional military forces. The tactical situation in Silver Creek Valley reached a critical turning point as Thomas Harrison's surveillance network detected significant changes in the Crimson Riders' operation. Their command structure had shifted, bringing in elements that suggested direct involvement from higher-level organizations. Through his tactical displays, Thomas observed the arrival of individuals whose bearing and equipment indicated connection to classified military programs. New players on the field, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. These aren't standard operators. Facial recognition matches personnel connected to restricted military development programs. Their presence suggests this operation has drawn attention from serious oversight authorities. The satellite feed showed figures moving with the practiced precision of senior military commanders conducting sensitive operations. Commander Stone's tactical approach demonstrated immediate adjustment to the changing situation. His orders now carried additional authority, suggesting communication with higher command elements. Implementation of Protocol Omega authorized, he transmitted through encrypted channels. All teams prepare for full operational security measures. This situation requires immediate containment. Thomas recognized the implications of this escalation. Through his years in special operations, he had encountered similar protocols during missions involving classified military assets. The authorization of high-level containment procedures indicated that Silver Creek Valley had become focal point for something far more significant than territorial control. Getting confirmation on command authorization codes, Colonel Morrison reported through secure communications. These match patterns used in classified military operations. Someone at a very high level has taken direct interest in this situation. They're implementing procedures designed for protecting sensitive military programs from exposure. The Crimson Riders' deployment shifted to accommodate new priorities. Their operators established additional security layers around key infrastructure points, implementing protocols that suggested preparation for handling classified materials. The precision of their operations revealed connection to official military procedures rather than private contractor standards. Multiple teams establishing advanced containment positions, Marcus Rodriguez observed through the tactical network. Their movement patterns match protocols for securing sensitive military assets. They're treating this like a classified operation rather than a private security matter. His Marine Corps experience helped identify the significance of these tactical changes. Sheriff Martinez provided crucial updates through secure channels as her deputies monitored the situation. They're implementing communication blackout procedures across the valley, she reported. Professional electronic warfare teams are deploying equipment designed to isolate the entire operational area. They're preparing for something that requires complete operational security. Thomas analyzed these developments with the methodical precision that had characterized his military career. The escalation to high-level containment protocols indicated that their resistance had exposed elements of a classified operation. The arrival of senior military figures suggested direct involvement from organizations that preferred to remain unidentified. Their new security measures match specifications for handling experimental military systems, Captain Mitchell added. The containment protocols and monitoring requirements align with procedures for protecting classified technology. Whatever they're planning to move through Silver Creek Valley requires extraordinary security clearance. The tactical situation evolved rapidly as the Crimson Riders implemented enhanced security measures. Their operators demonstrated increased professional discipline, executing protocols that revealed connection to official military operations. Each movement showed precise coordination, focused on maintaining absolute operational security. All sectors switching to restricted communication protocols, came the update through intercepted channels. Implementing full-spectrum electronic warfare coverage, no unauthorized signals in or out of the operational area. The professional precision in these orders indicated operation under official military authority rather than private contractor standards. Thomas coordinated the community's response through his secure network, utilizing capabilities that matched the opposition's sophisticated escalation. Local defenders maintained tactical positions with disciplined precision, while technical teams adapted to counter the advanced electronic warfare systems being deployed against them. They're establishing a complete security cordon, Colonel Morrison observed through encrypted channels. The containment protocols match procedures for protecting classified military assets. This level of security suggests involvement from organizations with direct government authority. They're treating this situation as a potential breach of classified programs. The crisis point had arrived as both sides recognized the true nature of the confrontation. This wasn't merely a conflict between private military contractors and local resistance. It had evolved into a situation involving classified military capabilities and official containment protocols. The Crimson Riders' escalation to high-level security measures indicated that Silver Creek Valley had become focal point for protecting sensitive government operations from exposure. "Implement final containment procedures," Commander Stone ordered, through secured channels. "No unauthorized movement or communication within the operational area. This situation requires immediate resolution under classified protocols." His commands now carried the authority of someone operating under direct military oversight, rather than private contractor authority. Thomas understood that the situation had reached a critical juncture requiring careful tactical decisions. His years in special operations had prepared him for managing complex situations involving classified military assets, but the involvement of official containment protocols raised the stakes significantly. The community's response would determine more than local control. It could expose operations that powerful organizations needed to keep hidden. The pre-dawn hours brought Silver Creek Valley's first significant tactical advantage as Thomas Harrison implemented a carefully coordinated response to the Crimson Riders' containment protocols. His years of special operations experience had taught him that superior equipment often became a liability when opponents understood its vulnerabilities. Through his command center's displays, he watched his planned countermeasures take effect with professional precision. Electronic warfare systems experiencing cascade failures across multiple sectors, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. The satellite feed showed the Crimson Riders' sophisticated equipment encountering unexpected interference patterns. Their advanced technology, designed for overwhelming conventional resistance, proved susceptible to precisely calculated countermeasures. Commander Stone's voice carried controlled tension as he addressed his tactical teams. "All units report. Status on electronic warfare capabilities. We're seeing systematic disruption of command and control systems." His professional demeanor remained intact, but the situation had clearly evolved beyond their anticipated scenarios. Thomas had prepared this response utilizing expertise gained through decades of military service. Local technical specialists, guided by his tactical knowledge, implemented sophisticated countermeasures that targeted specific vulnerabilities in military-grade equipment. The Crimson Riders' advanced systems, representing classified military technology, encountered resistance that matched their capabilities. "Their communication network is fragmenting," Colonel Morrison observed through encrypted channels. "The countermeasures are forcing their teams to operate without coordinated support." Their tactical advantage relied heavily on superior technology. They weren't prepared for opposition with professional electronic warfare capabilities. The Crimson Riders operators maintained professional discipline as they attempted to adapt to the situation. Their movements showed extensive military training, but the loss of coordinated communication compromised their tactical effectiveness. Each team found itself operating in increasing isolation as their sophisticated equipment encountered carefully planned interference. "Multiple teams reporting complete system failures," came the updates through intercepted channels. "Electronic warfare coverage compromised, counter-surveillance capabilities offline." The professional operators struggled to maintain tactical coordination as their advanced technology proved increasingly unreliable. Sheriff Martinez coordinated with local defenders through alternative communication methods that Thomas had established. "Their tactical teams are losing situational awareness," she reported. "The professional operators are maintaining discipline, but they're having to revert to basic protocols without their advanced systems." Thomas directed the community's response with methodical precision, utilizing capabilities that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of military operations. Local defenders executed coordinated movements that took advantage of the Crimson Riders' compromised communication systems. The professional operators found their tactical positions increasingly vulnerable to precisely planned countermeasures. Their command structure is showing signs of serious disruption, Captain Mitchell added through secure channels. The loss of electronic warfare capabilities has compromised their ability to maintain operational security. Their containment protocols are becoming increasingly ineffective without coordinated support. The Crimson Riders attempted to adapt their deployment to compensate for their compromised systems. Their operators demonstrated professional expertise in tactical adjustment, but the loss of coordinated communication severely limited their effectiveness. Each team found itself facing opposition that understood and exploited their vulnerabilities. Implementation of contingency protocols authorized, Commander Stone ordered, through increasingly unreliable channels. All teams switched to alternative communication systems. Maintain tactical positions using standard operating procedures. His commands showed professional adaptation to the situation, but the loss of advanced capabilities had significantly impacted their operational effectiveness. Thomas coordinated the community's tactical response through his secure network, utilizing methods that matched the opposition's professional standards. Local defenders maintained disciplined execution of planned countermeasures, while technical teams continued implementing sophisticated interference patterns that compromised the Crimson Riders' advanced systems. Their security cordon is showing multiple vulnerabilities, Colonel Morrison observed. The loss of electronic warfare capabilities has created gaps in their tactical coverage. Their containment protocols are becoming increasingly difficult to maintain without coordinated communication. The situation demonstrated why superior technology often proved less decisive than professional expertise and careful planning. The Crimson Riders' advanced equipment, representing classified military capabilities, encountered opposition specifically designed to exploit its vulnerabilities. Their professional operators maintained tactical discipline, but the loss of coordinated support severely compromised their effectiveness. All teams implement tactical withdrawal to secondary positions, Commander Stone ordered through compromised communications. Regroup and re-establish electronic warfare coverage. This situation requires immediate tactical reassessment. His commands carried professional authority, but the need for withdrawal revealed the significant impact of their compromised capabilities. Thomas understood that this initial success represented a crucial turning point in the conflict. The Crimson Riders' reliance on advanced technology had proved vulnerable to precisely planned countermeasures. Their professional operators maintained tactical discipline, but the loss of coordinated communication severely impacted their ability to implement containment protocols. The morning sun began illuminating Silver Creek Valley as both sides assessed the tactical situation. The Crimson Riders' sophisticated equipment, representing classified military capabilities, had encountered opposition that understood its vulnerabilities. Their professional operators maintained discipline, but the loss of coordinated support forced significant tactical adjustments. The community's response had demonstrated that superior technology often proved less effective than careful planning and professional expertise. The tactical situation in Silver Creek Valley shifted dramatically as the Crimson Riders initiated their contingency response. Through his surveillance network, Thomas Harrison observed the arrival of specialized reinforcements that demonstrated the operation's connection to classified military programs. These new assets carried equipment that exceeded even the sophisticated systems previously deployed. Multiple transport aircraft detected approaching restricted airspace, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. Thermal signatures indicate deployment of advanced tactical units. They're bringing in specialized teams equipped with prototype military systems. The satellite feed showed professional operators preparing equipment that matched classified development programs. Commander Stone coordinated this enhanced deployment from a reconfigured command post, his orders reflecting increased tactical sophistication. Implementation of Protocol Echo 7 authorized. He transmitted through newly established secure channels. All sectors prepare for deployment of classified tactical systems. Previous operational parameters are superseded by direct command authority. Thomas recognized the significance of this escalation through his years of special operations experience. The authorization of classified tactical protocols indicated direct involvement from military oversight authorities. The Crimson Riders were transitioning from private military contractors to operators implementing official containment procedures. Confirming signatures on new equipment, Colonel Morrison reported through encrypted communications. These systems match restricted military development programs. Someone's authorized deployment of prototype tactical capabilities that haven't been cleared for operational use. This situation has drawn attention from serious oversight authorities. The new tactical teams demonstrated capabilities that exceeded conventional military standards. Their deployment patterns showed extensive experience with classified operations, while their equipment represented advanced military technology that shouldn't have existed outside secure development facilities. Each movement revealed professional precision in handling sensitive capabilities. Multiple teams establishing enhanced security positions, Marcus Rodriguez observed through the tactical network. Their protocols match classified military procedures for securing sensitive assets. These operators are implementing containment measures that exceed standard tactical guidelines. His Marine Corps experience helped identify the sophisticated nature of their deployment. Sheriff Martinez provided crucial updates as her deputies monitored the situation through concealed positions. They're establishing a new security framework across the valley, she reported. Advanced electronic warfare teams are deploying systems designed for complete spectrum control. Their capability to isolate the operational area has increased significantly. Thomas analyzed these developments with the methodical precision that had characterized his military career. The deployment of classified tactical systems indicated that their previous success had triggered enhanced containment protocols. The arrival of specialized operators suggested implementation of procedures reserved for protecting sensitive military programs from exposure. Their new security measures exceed previous specifications, Captain Mitchell added through secure channels. The containment protocols align with classified procedures for handling experimental military technology. These teams are equipped to maintain absolute operational security under contested conditions. The Crimson Riders' enhanced deployment demonstrated sophisticated tactical adaptation. Their operators implemented security protocols that revealed connection to classified military programs, establishing control measures designed for protecting sensitive assets. Each position showed professional precision in maintaining enhanced operational security. All sectors transitioning to classified communication protocols came the update through intercepted channels. Implementing enhanced electronic warfare. Coverage using authorized prototype systems. No unauthorized signals or movement permitted within the operational area. The professional precision in these orders indicated operation under direct military authority. Thomas coordinated the community's response through his secure network, utilizing capabilities that matched the opposition's sophisticated escalation. Local defenders maintained tactical positions with disciplined precision, while technical teams adapted to counter the advanced systems being deployed against them. The situation required careful adjustment to handle enhanced military capabilities. They're establishing a complete security framework, Colonel Morrison observed through encrypted channels. The containment protocols match classified procedures for protecting sensitive military assets. This level of security suggests direct oversight from authorities concerned about potential exposure of restricted programs. The tactical situation evolved rapidly as both sides adjusted to new operational parameters. The Crimson Riders implemented enhanced security measures that demonstrated sophisticated military capabilities, while the community's defenders adapted their response to counter advanced tactical systems. Each movement revealed professional precision in handling increasingly complex security protocols. Implementation of final containment procedures authorized, Commander Stone ordered through secured channels. All teams prepare for deployment of classified tactical systems. This situation requires immediate resolution under enhanced security protocols. His commands now carried the authority of someone implementing official military containment procedures. Thomas understood that the situation had reached a new level of tactical complexity. His years in special operations had prepared him for managing situations involving classified military assets, but the deployment of prototype systems required careful response. The community's defense would need to adapt to counter capabilities that exceeded conventional military standards. The morning operations continued as both sides demonstrated sophisticated tactical execution. The Crimson Riders implemented enhanced security protocols that revealed connection to classified military programs, while the community's defenders adjusted their response to handle advanced capabilities. The situation had evolved beyond conventional tactical engagement into an operation involving sensitive military assets and enhanced containment procedures. The tactical dynamics in Silver Creek Valley shifted dramatically as Thomas Harrison implemented the decisive phase of his response. Through his command center's surveillance systems, he observed the Crimson Riders' enhanced security protocols, reaching their operational limit. Their sophisticated equipment, despite representing classified military capabilities, had created vulnerabilities that his years of special operations experience had taught him to recognize and exploit. Multiple thermal signatures showing systematic equipment failure, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. Their advanced systems are experiencing cascading malfunctions across all sectors. The prototype technology they're relying on wasn't designed for sustained deployment under these conditions. The satellite feed revealed professional operators struggling to maintain tactical coordination as their sophisticated communications network deteriorated. Commander Stone's voice carried controlled tension as he addressed his teams through increasingly unreliable channels. All units implement Contingency Protocol Delta. Our primary systems are compromised. Maintain tactical positions using standard operating procedures. His commands demonstrated professional adaptation, but the loss of their advanced capabilities had severely impacted their operational effectiveness. Thomas had anticipated this vulnerability during his years preparing Silver Creek Valley's defenses. Military technology, especially classified prototype systems, often proved susceptible to carefully planned countermeasures. Local technical specialists, guided by his tactical expertise, had implemented precise interference patterns that targeted specific weaknesses in the advanced equipment. Their command structure is showing serious degradation, Colonel Morrison observed through encrypted communications. The loss of coordinated control has compromised their ability to maintain enhanced security protocols. These prototype systems weren't designed to handle this kind of systematic disruption. The Crimson Riders operators maintained professional discipline as they attempted to adapt their deployment. Their movements showed extensive military training, but without their sophisticated technology, they found themselves facing opponents who understood conventional tactical operations. Each team encountered resistance that matched their professional standards while exploiting their technical vulnerabilities. Multiple sectors reporting complete system failure, came urgent updates through intercepted channels. Enhanced electronic warfare capabilities offline, unable to maintain classified containment protocols. The professional operators struggled to preserve operational security as their advanced systems proved increasingly unreliable under sustained countermeasures. Sheriff Martinez coordinated with local defenders through alternative communication, methods that Thomas had established years earlier. "Their tactical teams are losing cohesion," she reported. "The professional operators are maintaining discipline, but they're forced to abandon their enhanced capabilities and revert to basic protocols." Thomas directed the community's response with methodical precision, utilizing capabilities that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of both conventional and advanced military operations. Local defenders executed coordinated movements that systematically exploited the gaps created by the Crimson Riders' compromised command structure. "Their enhanced security framework is collapsing," Captain Mitchell added through secure channels. "The prototype systems they deployed weren't designed for extended operations under these conditions. Their ability to maintain classified containment protocols has been severely compromised." As morning light illuminated Silver Creek Valley, the tactical situation had reached its turning point. The Crimson Riders' sophisticated equipment, representing classified military capabilities, had encountered opposition specifically designed to exploit its vulnerabilities. Their professional operators maintained tactical discipline, but the loss of their advanced systems forced them to recognize a critical reality. They were no longer facing simple civilian resistance, but coordinated opposition, led by someone who understood their operational doctrine at its deepest level. Commander Stone's final transmission through their degrading communication network carried the professional assessment of someone recognizing a decisive shift in tactical advantage. "All units, prepare for tactical withdrawal. We've lost operational security for classified systems. Situation requires immediate strategic reassessment." His words confirmed what Thomas had planned for through years of careful preparation. Sometimes the most sophisticated military technology proved vulnerable to opponents who understood its fundamental weaknesses. The morning sun revealed the full impact of Thomas Harrison's carefully planned countermeasures across Silver Creek Valley. Through his command center's displays, he watched the Crimson Riders' sophisticated operation unravel with professional precision. Their advanced military equipment, compromised by systematic interference, no longer provided the tactical advantage they'd relied upon throughout their expansion. Confirming complete disruption of their command and control network, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. "Their prototype systems have been effectively neutralized. We're detecting multiple unauthorized access points in their classified communications." The satellite feed showed their professional operators attempting to maintain tactical cohesion without their advanced technology. Commander Stone faced a situation that his extensive military experience hadn't prepared him for: complete technological failure against an opponent who understood the vulnerabilities of classified systems. "All units implement Emergency Protocol Omega," he ordered, through increasingly unreliable channels. "Fall back to secondary positions. Secure all classified equipment and documentation." Thomas had anticipated this critical moment during his years of preparation. Through his special operations experience, he'd learned that sophisticated military technology often became a critical weakness when facing opponents who understood its fundamental vulnerabilities. Local defenders, coordinated through his tactical network, moved systematically to exploit the gaps in the Crimson Riders' compromised security. "Their operational security is completely compromised," Colonel Morrison observed through encrypted communications. "We're accessing their tactical databases through the vulnerabilities in their prototype systems. Everything's being documented." their classified operations, corporate connections, political protection networks. The Crimson Riders' professional operators maintained disciplined withdrawal procedures, but their movements revealed growing recognition of their strategic failure. Without their advanced technology, they faced opposition that matched their tactical expertise while systematically exposing their classified operations. Multiple teams reporting critical system failures came urgent updates through intercepted channels. Unable to maintain security protocols for classified materials, command structure compromised at all levels. Their professional discipline remained intact, but the situation had evolved beyond their ability to maintain operational security. Sheriff Martinez coordinated with state and federal law enforcement through secure channels that Thomas had established. "We've got multiple agencies responding now," she reported. "The evidence we've gathered through their compromised systems is triggering serious investigations. Their political protection is evaporating as the scale of their operation becomes clear." Thomas directed the final phase of his response with methodical precision, utilizing capabilities that demonstrated decades of special operations experience. Local defenders maintained coordinated pressure on the retreating operators, while technical teams continued extracting crucial evidence from their compromised systems. "Their entire network is exposed," Captain Mitchell added through secure channels. "We're accessing documentation of their complete operation, classified weapons shipments, illegal technology transfers, unauthorized domestic operations. The evidence trail leads to some very powerful organizations." Commander Stone recognized the irreversible collapse of his operations security. His final transmission through their failing communication network carried the professional assessment of someone who understood the full implications of their exposure. "All units initiate complete withdrawal. Operational security compromised. Beyond recovery. Implement final containment protocols immediately." But Thomas had prepared for their contingency procedures. As the Crimson Riders attempted to withdraw, they found their escape routes systematically blocked by coordinated defensive positions. Each attempted movement encountered opposition that anticipated their tactical doctrine and exploited their compromised capabilities. "Federal response teams are moving in," Colonel Morrison reported through encrypted channels. "The evidence we've extracted from their systems has triggered multiple high-level investigations. Their entire network is unraveling as agencies begin connecting the dots." The morning operations revealed the complete reversal of tactical advantage. The Crimson Riders' sophisticated equipment, representing classified military capabilities, had become the vulnerability that exposed their entire operation. Their professional operators maintained discipline, but they faced the reality that their classified technology had been turned against them by someone who understood its deepest weaknesses. Through his surveillance network, Thomas watched federal agencies securing the Crimson Riders' command center and classified equipment. The professional operators, recognizing the futility of further resistance, implemented surrender protocols. With the same discipline they'd shown throughout their operations. Their sophisticated operation, built on classified military technology and political protection, had been systematically dismantled by a quiet farming community led by a veteran who understood that true tactical advantage came from wisdom rather than technology. The aftermath of the confrontation in Silver Creek Valley revealed implications that extended far beyond local security concerns. Through his command center's sophisticated systems, Thomas Harrison monitored the systematic investigation that followed the Crimson Riders' operational collapse. Federal agencies, responding to evidence extracted from compromised classified systems, uncovered a network that connected private military contractors to unauthorized domestic operations. Analysis of their tactical databases has revealed concerning Patterns, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. Their operation wasn't isolated to rural communities. They were establishing a sophisticated infrastructure network for moving classified military hardware through civilian areas. The documentation shows connections to multiple government contractors and private security firms. The professional assessment from Colonel Morrison carried additional gravity. Their compromised systems have exposed operations in 17 states. Each location shows the same pattern: private military contractors using criminal organizations as cover for developing unauthorized transportation networks. The technology they deployed in Silver Creek Valley matches restricted military development programs. Thomas observed the federal response through his surveillance network. Professional teams systematically secured classified equipment and documentation, while investigators traced connections that led to increasingly significant revelations. The Crimson Riders' sophisticated operation had served as the visible element of a much larger strategic initiative. Multiple agencies are coordinating investigations, Sheriff Martinez reported through encrypted channels. The evidence we've uncovered has triggered reviews at the highest levels. Their political protection is dissolving as the full scope of their unauthorized activities becomes clear. We're seeing connections to classified weapons programs, experimental military technology, and unauthorized domestic operations. The technical analysis of seized equipment provided crucial insights. The Crimson Riders' advanced systems, representing classified military capabilities, had carried signatures that connected them to restricted development programs. Their deployment in civilian areas indicated serious breaches in operational security protocols. The documentation reveals systematic expansion, Captain Mitchell added through secure communications. They were establishing control points along major transportation corridors, creating infrastructure for moving sensitive materials without official oversight. The operation in Silver Creek Valley represented a crucial node in their distribution network. Thomas coordinated with federal authorities through his professional contacts, providing crucial context from his special operations experience. The evidence extracted from compromised systems revealed that the Crimson Riders' territorial expansion served a larger strategic purpose, establishing unofficial channels for moving classified military assets outside normal oversight. Their operational structure shows concerning sophistication, Colonel Morrison observed through encrypted channels. The integration of criminal organizations with private military contractors created a shadow infrastructure network. They used rural communities as cover for moving materials that couldn't go through official channels. The technical signatures match experimental military systems that shouldn't exist outside classified programs. The investigation revealed multiple layers of unauthorized activity. The Crimson Riders' professional operators had implemented tactical protocols that originated in classified military programs, while their equipment demonstrated access to restricted technology. Each revelation led to additional connections that suggested serious breaches in operational security. Federal teams are securing evidence at multiple locations, Sheriff Martinez reported. The pattern matches what we uncovered in Silver Creek Valley. Professional military contractors using criminal organizations as cover, establishing infrastructure for moving sensitive materials through civilian areas. The documentation shows systematic development of unauthorized transportation networks. Through his secure systems, Thomas monitored the broader implications of their success. The exposure of the Crimson Riders' operation had triggered investigations that reached into significant organizations. Their sophisticated network, combining professional military expertise with criminal intimidation, had served purposes that powerful figures had intended to keep hidden. The technical analysis shows concerning capabilities, Captain Mitchell added. Their equipment matches classified military development programs. The deployment of prototype systems in civilian areas indicates serious breaches in operational security. The documentation reveals unauthorized testing of experimental technology through their established networks. The morning's operations had exposed more than a criminal organization using military tactics. The evidence revealed systematic development of unauthorized infrastructure for moving classified materials through civilian communities. The Crimson Riders' professional operators had served as the visible element of a much larger strategic initiative that connected private military contractors to restricted government programs. Thomas understood that their success in Silver Creek Valley had implications beyond local security. His special operations experience helped him recognize patterns that suggested serious breaches in classified programs. The evidence they'd uncovered would trigger investigations that reached into organizations that preferred to operate without oversight or accountability. The transformation of Silver Creek Valley in the wake of the Crimson Riders operation revealed deeper truths about community resilience and professional preparation. Thomas Harrison observed the systematic restoration through his command center's displays, noting how federal agencies coordinated their response with a precision that matched his special operations experience. The evidence they'd uncovered continued, generating significant revelations about unauthorized military operations on domestic soil. Final analysis of their tactical databases confirms the broader implications, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. The Crimson Riders operation connected to multiple classified programs operating without proper authorization. Their presence in rural communities served as cover for testing experimental military systems outside official oversight. The documentation reveals systematic breaches in operational security protocols. Colonel Morrison's assessment carried the weight of decades of military intelligence experience. The technical signatures from their equipment match restricted development programs that shouldn't have been deployed in civilian areas. Their infrastructure network was designed for moving sensitive materials without official documentation. Each location they targeted served a specific strategic purpose. In their unauthorized distribution system, through his surveillance systems, Thomas monitored the professional response teams, securing classified equipment and documentation. Their movements showed the same tactical precision he'd observed in special operations, but now directed toward protecting evidence that exposed serious breaches in military security protocols. Multiple agencies are coordinating comprehensive investigations, Sheriff Martinez reported through encrypted channels. The evidence we've uncovered has triggered reviews at every level. Their sophisticated operation connected private military contractors to unauthorized testing of experimental systems in civilian areas. The documentation shows systematic development of infrastructure for moving classified materials outside official channels. The technical analysis revealed increasingly significant patterns. The Crimson Riders' advanced systems carried signatures that connected them to restricted military programs, while their tactical protocols demonstrated access to classified operational procedures. Each piece of evidence led to additional connections that suggested serious breaches in security protocols. The investigation has expanded significantly, Captain Mitchell added, through secure communications. Federal teams are securing evidence at multiple locations that match the pattern we uncovered in Silver Creek Valley. Their network combined professional military expertise with criminal organizations to create unauthorized infrastructure for moving sensitive materials. The technical signatures indicate deployment of prototype systems that weren't cleared for civilian areas. Thomas coordinated with federal authorities through his professional contacts, providing crucial context. from his special operations background. The evidence they'd extracted revealed systematic development of unauthorized channels for moving classified military assets outside normal oversight protocols. Each revelation led to additional connections that suggested serious breaches in operational security. The operational structure shows concerning sophistication, Colonel Morrison observed, through encrypted channels. Their integration of criminal organizations with private military contractors created a shadow infrastructure network that extended across multiple states. The technical analysis reveals unauthorized testing of experimental systems through their established distribution channels. Each location they targeted served specific purposes in their classified operations. The morning sun illuminated a changed Silver Creek Valley as federal teams continued their systematic investigation. The professional operators who had attempted to establish unauthorized military operations now faced consequences that extended far beyond local jurisdiction. Their sophisticated network, combining tactical expertise with criminal intimidation, had served purposes that powerful organizations had intended to keep hidden. The technical assessment confirms serious breaches, Captain Mitchell reported. Their equipment matches classified military development programs that weren't authorized for deployment. The documentation reveals systematic testing of experimental systems through their established networks. Each piece of evidence connects to unauthorized operations that bypassed normal oversight protocols. Thomas understood that their success had implications that reached beyond local security. His special operations experience helped him recognize patterns that suggested serious breaches in classified programs. The evidence they'd uncovered would trigger investigations that reached into organizations that preferred to operate without accountability. Through his command center's displays, he watched federal agencies implementing professional security protocols around seized equipment and documentation. Their movements showed tactical precision in handling sensitive materials, while investigators traced connections that led to increasingly significant revelations about unauthorized military operations on domestic soil. The morning operations had exposed more than a criminal organization using military tactics. The evidence revealed systematic development of unauthorized infrastructure for moving classified materials through civilian communities. The Crimson Riders professional operators had served as the visible element of a much larger strategic initiative that connected private military contractors to restricted government programs. Silver Creek Valley had demonstrated why underestimating rural communities could be a serious tactical error. Behind the peaceful facade of farming life, they'd harbored sophisticated capabilities led by a veteran who understood how to counter professional military operations. Their success would trigger changes that reached far beyond their quiet valley, exposing organizations that had thought themselves beyond accountability. The transformation of Silver Creek Valley in the weeks following the Crimson Riders operation revealed enduring truths about community resilience and professional preparation. Thomas Harrison observed the systematic restoration of normal life through his command center's displays, though normal now carried deeper meaning for a community that had faced sophisticated military operators and emerged stronger. Final analysis confirms the broader impact of what happened here, Captain Mitchell reported through secure channels. Silver Creek Valley's response has triggered significant changes in how agencies handle unauthorized military operations in civilian areas. The evidence you uncovered exposed systematic breaches that reached into classified programs. Your community's resistance provided a template for protecting rural areas from sophisticated tactical threats. Colonel Morrison's assessment carried professional appreciation. What you achieved here goes beyond tactical success. You demonstrated why some veterans maintain capabilities long after retirement. The Crimson Riders encountered more than local resistance. They faced opposition led by someone who understood their operational doctrine at its deepest level. Your preparation protected more than one community. Through his surveillance systems, Thomas watched federal teams completing their investigation. Their movements showed professional precision in handling sensitive materials, while the evidence they'd gathered continued generating revelations about unauthorized military operations on domestic soil. Each discovery reinforced why some quiet veterans maintained sophisticated capabilities years after leaving service. The investigation has expanded significantly, Sheriff Martinez reported through encrypted channels. Federal agencies are implementing new protocols based on what we uncovered here. Your tactical expertise didn't just protect Silver Creek Valley. It exposed operations that threatened communities across multiple states. The response teams are using our experience to develop better protection for rural areas. The technical analysis revealed lasting implications. The Crimson Riders' sophisticated operation had demonstrated why criminal organizations using military tactics posed serious threats to civilian communities. But Silver Creek Valley's response, guided by professional expertise, showed how prepared communities could counter even advanced tactical operations. Your success here changed operational doctrine, Captain Mitchell added through secure communications. Federal agencies are revising how they handle private military contractors operating in civilian areas. The evidence you gathered exposed systematic weaknesses in how classified programs were monitored. Each revelation led to improved protocols for protecting rural communities. Thomas coordinated with federal authorities as they completed their investigation, providing context from his special operations background that helped strengthen future protective measures. Silver Creek Valley's experience offered crucial insights into countering sophisticated tactical operations that targeted civilian infrastructure. The operational implications extend far beyond local security, Colonel Morrison observed through encrypted channels. You demonstrated why some veterans never truly retire. They find different ways to serve their communities. The capabilities you maintained weren't just about tactical advantage. They protected people who needed someone with professional expertise on their side. The autumn sun illuminated a strengthened Silver Creek Valley as the community resumed its peaceful routines. Local farmers returned to their fields, though now they understood why some quiet veterans maintained sophisticated capabilities. The market square filled again with familiar faces, each carrying deeper appreciation for how professional preparation had protected their way of life. Your response here set new standards, Captain Mitchell reported. Communities facing similar threats now have a template for effective resistance. The documentation shows how professional expertise combined with local knowledge can counter even sophisticated military operations. Each lesson learned strengthens protection for rural areas across the country. Thomas understood that their success carried lasting significance beyond tactical victory. His special operations experience had helped protect not just one community, but exposed threats that endangered civilian areas across multiple states. The evidence they'd uncovered continued generating improvements in how agencies handled unauthorized military operations. Through his command center's displays, he watched his community embrace its strengthened bonds. The Crimson Riders had thought they were targeting vulnerable civilians, but instead encountered opposition led by someone who understood professional military operations. Their sophisticated equipment, representing classified capabilities, proved less effective than carefully prepared defense guided by veteran expertise. The morning light revealed a community forever changed, yet stronger in its core values. Silver Creek Valley had demonstrated why underestimating rural areas could be a serious tactical error. Behind the peaceful facade of farming life, They'd harbored capabilities that matched professional military operations. Their success protected not just their valley, but exposed organizations that threatened civilian communities across the country. Thomas Harrison's quiet vigilance had transformed from personal preparation into protection for communities facing sophisticated threats. His professional expertise had guided local defense that matched tactical operations, while exposing unauthorized military activities that endangered civilian areas. The legacy of Silver Creek Valley's resistance would strengthen protection for rural communities long into the future. As autumn progressed, the valley returned to its peaceful rhythms, though now carrying deeper understanding of why some veterans maintained sophisticated capabilities years after leaving service. The Crimson Riders had thought they were targeting simple farmers, but instead encountered opposition led by someone who understood their tactical doctrine at its deepest level. Their defeat demonstrated enduring truth. True strength often lay not in superior technology, but in professional expertise, guided by commitment to protecting what mattered most. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.